Welcome back to Winning Hand. My name is Boomguy, and this is a series all about decks where my friend Andyr and I talk about decks you should be checking out and deck builders you should be paying attention to on Marvel CDB. Andy, how are you?
I'm doing great. I think I finally recovered from the con. My sleep scores finally went above 4 hours of sleep, so I think I'm doing okay. How about yourself?
I'm good. For me, I don't track sleep scores, so there was no deficit for me to notice, and it was great. I was, of course, exhausted. It was 4 days of just absolute Marvel Champions pandemonium, and there was a big drop-off when I got home, but we're home now, and we're recording this less than a week after, but it will go up about a week and a half after the con officially ended. But we wanted to talk about decks like we always do in the Marvel Champions game, but we want to talk about it in the Con of Heroes context specifically. So this video is not going to be about the con specifically. It's going to be about the decks that we saw, the decks that we played, kind of deck building archetypes that we see, or other kind of patterns we've noticed in how people play decks, because this is a great way to see all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it really was cool to see just the variety of decks that people were playing, as well as just how the game has kind of changed from the way that we saw multiplayer even just a year ago to today, because it felt like it's shifted a little bit.
I agree. And I have some notes here, and I know you do as well. So I'm just going to go through some of my thoughts, and then I want to hear some of yours, and we can discuss these as we go. So this first part, listeners and viewers, is going to be a little casual. We're just going to talk about trends we're noticing or things that we see about the game and how it's developed. And then we'll get to the second part where we talk about decks that you're more used to seeing in this series after that. So let me just start by saying, one of the things I noticed this year was the lack of player side schemes. Last year, they were a new card type, and so that could lead into why I felt like the game was flooded with them, and everybody had multiple in their decks, and everybody was running a helicarrier on their sideboard because somebody had build support. This year, I will say there was a lot fewer player side schemes. Did see superpower training a little bit less, but build support was the most common one. I think that was on not all decks, though. There was a lot of people that didn't have one at all. But beyond that, they were fairly rare. What was your experience there?
No, that was I would agree with you. And I can't tell if it's because, Cable had come out last year, or it was like towards the end of that wave. And so it was the new card. Everyone wanted this. But yeah, even at the start of each game, when everyone would discuss, hey, who's got what player side schemes, making sure no one doubles up, the conversation kind of was like, play whichever ones are in your deck. And so I think I did see a fair amount of call for backup and specialized training, but not nearly as much like you said. Build support, I think, was almost every other game it came out. But really, I think if we finished a player side scheme, maybe one or two per game, and that's it. Not anywhere near last time where your victory display was like flooded with player side schemes.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I played one game with Cable at the table, and he had all of them.
Yeah.
But other than that, there was a lot of people who just didn't have. I mean, I'd sit down and say, okay, like I have superpower training in my deck because I'm playing Iceman or Colossus or someone that I feel like really needs that. Say, does this benefit anybody else? And people will be like, I got something. Who's got build support? Nobody. I was like, oh, okay. That was interesting. It was a big drop off, and I was expecting more. And I think before the con, I was telling people, bring a helicarrier in your sideboard because everybody has a build support, so you'll get it into play. And that proved to be wrong. That was one thing I noticed.
It still is a good idea to have a helicarrier, but you're right. Like having build support target it didn't happen quite as much. I will say I did see, in terms of one-offs, occasionally I saw a lot more of the ones that don't get a lot of play. So like someone had Keep Up the Pressure. That was fun, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But I got to see that. I think I saw Show of Empathy once. And so like maybe one time I got to see some of those other lesser played ones. So it's cool that people are trying to think of combos around those. But it definitely was like everyone just, your deck had a player side scheme in it. That's great. And we'll play. And if not, we'll play.
Yeah. I brought a deck that used Astonishing X-Men, which I thought was pretty fun. That's the one that stuns and confuses every person or every enemy in play. And I used that, but I don't know if I had any others that particularly were like rare. I think I had the common ones. Even specialized training. Specialized training is an interesting one because that is one I immediately think of as a multiplayer card. But man, in a 4-player game, it's 5 per player.
Yeah,
that's a lot. And if it's not out early, it's just not getting cleared. And
Yeah.
there was a few times where it got played out. Either I played it, I think, in a few decks, or someone played it, and it gets 20. And man, if that encounter card comes out that puts 4 on every side scheme, I forget what it's called.
Oh, it feels like such a reset.
Dead. And you're immediately like, well, that's not getting cleared. And a lot of times it was like we'd be working, and it's like, well, it still has 16 on it. We're probably pushing the villain to the second phase soon. Like, it's just not worth it anymore. So it would just stay there. So make some good targets for Storm. If you play out a side scheme that no one plans to clear, you can just load it up full of stuff. Okay, so one of the things I noticed was Nick and Maria. Before the con, I predicted we'd see a lot of them in hero form, which would limit the amount of use that would just be able to play the allies. I did not see a single Nick Fury ally the entire time I was there. I played 40 games of Marvel Champions, most of them 4-player. I did not see a single Nick Fury ally. And I think I saw Maria Hill once or maybe twice in games. And it's not because I saw the heroes, because there weren't that many Nicks and Marias. There were only a few.
Yeah.
But they just were not there very much. I don't know what's up with that.
It definitely goes to show like the variety of deck building options that are in front of us now, that players don't have to rely on these things. Like, they have kind of moved on to others, because Nick and Maria are still ally form, most powerful. You know, that's why we see them everywhere. But also, it definitely is just like, there are other ways that players are wanting to play their boards, and they aren't as needed as they once were, which is really cool to see everyone just kind of creating different ways of managing. Like, if Mission Leader draws everyone a card, then I don't need to wait on Maria to do it. I can rely on side schemes to help everyone draw cards. So Maria may not necessarily make the cut, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, I still would probably say Maria Hill might be the single best multiplayer card in the game.
Yeah.
If it isn't, it's pretty close.
Yeah.
Nick, I feel like, is more impactful at lower player counts, right? In a 1-player game, Nick drawing you 3 more cards and providing a body is incredible.
Yeah.
But it does taper off a bit at higher player counts, right? It's just you're drawing 3 cards is not as good as giving everybody a card. But yeah, I didn't see any of those. Speaking of Maria, it makes me think of Maria Hill recursion decks that I have seen in the past. And I will say, I didn't see a lot of gimmicky decks like that had kind of a what some people might consider a cheesy mechanic, like recurring Maria Hill every turn multiple times. Yeah. You know, I did that a couple years ago, so like I'm not, innocent here.
Who doesn't love a Maria Hill recursion deck on the table?
It's fun. Yeah. It's fun. And this is all about fun. But I didn't see a lot of gimmicky decks like that. What I saw were a lot more decks that felt fleshed out, decks that felt like they really provided something, either like a big push in one area, or they were just all around, being able to do this and do that and flex and help the table. So I didn't see as many gimmicky decks as I've seen in the past.
Yeah, even if someone brought a combo deck, they made sure that combo was consistent, which I think is really cool, because sometimes you get those decks where you're relying on this combo, but the key piece is at the bottom of the deck, and in a standard game where you only have like 1.5 times through, you may not actually get to make your combo happen. But in this case, each time a player did one of those styles, they made sure that they could make it happen within the first couple of turns, which, once again, just is really cool to see the level of care people took and what they brought with them.
Yeah. I also think that speaks to the tools we have in the game now to improve deck consistency, right?
Yeah.
Early on, there just weren't as many ways to make a consistent deck. And I feel like now, in every aspect, multiple archetypes have a way to provide some consistency for players so that they don't feel like a card being stuck on the bottom is the end of their deck.
Yeah.
And fewer decks rely on like that one single card. So that was cool. I did see a lot of standard difficulty, and most of my plays were at standard difficulty. I played 40 games of Marvel Champions, and looking at my stats, 29 of them were played at standard. So
nice.
That's just, I think, the overall preferred level of difficulty at the con. I think it's still fun. It's, can be a challenge depending on the villain and the mods, of course. And but it still provides a little bit of a shorter experience, which I think a lot of people are looking for, right? Yeah. Expert can go a little bit long.
Yeah. The difficulty was definitely modulated through the modular sets instead of like the mode. Because agreed, I know I played a couple of expert games, not a ton. I think I played less this year than I did last year. And most of it was standard, but a lot of the mods were swapped. It's like, hey, we're going to do standard, but I brought in this tougher mod so that there'll still be that pressure that you feel, but without the length of time and the massive amounts of health. Because health is the thing that usually makes the game, villain health is the thing that makes the game last longer, which you have more of an expert, but you can still raise the difficulty of a scenario through the modular set.
Yeah, and I know everyone always says, like, you know, you could play skirmish or whatever. I did play a few skirmish games.
Yeah.
And some of them were really, really enjoyable. I played a Mutagen Formula Stage 3 skirmish, which meant that he started the game with 3 encounter cards, right?
Yeah.
So it was really that big push of, we only have 1 stage, but we're starting with, you know, 3 encounter cards each. And then, of course, at the end of our turns, we got dealt a 4. So you got dealt 4 encounter cards to start the game. And that was a huge, like, hill to climb for the players. And it meant it was like a meaty challenge, but it didn't last too long. So that was really fun.
One of the other things, like, when it comes to just that deck variety and the tools that you talked about earlier, and even like tools to help manage some of these middle difficulties, things that are easier than expert, harder than standard. I definitely saw that there was a lot less in terms of rainbow games where everyone played one aspect, because it was more about the role of the table than it was about the aspect that people were playing. So I'd be in games that were double aggression, but one of those, double protection, but one of those protection players was vastly aggressive. And I think that's really cool. Once again, just to, like you said, like, why we're seeing a lot of this variety is that you can now be like, hey, I'm playing leadership, but it's really a thwarting leadership. Or, hey, I'm going to play protection, but it's really an aggression protection. So all of a sudden, the aspects don't matter as much as they do. And like I said, like, I think I played 8 rainbow games where everyone took a single aspect. Last year, I felt like that was a huge part of the conversation, was who's playing what aspect. Aspects were filled first. Whereas here, it was less about that and more, what deck do you want to play? What role are you filling? And then we're moving on.
Yeah, that's a great point. And you were part of the pre-con panel that we did, where we did talk about the elevator pitch for your deck.
Yeah.
And we mentioned that you should have an elevator pitch. So when you sit down, you should have, you know, in 3 to 4 sentences, be able to describe what your deck is going to provide. Yeah. And like you said, I think early in the game's life cycle, the aspects basically did that for you, right?
Yeah.
They said, like, oh, I'm playing Justice. Well, Justice thwarts. And that is still largely true. Justice does thwart, but there are Justice decks that don't thwart. There are Justice decks that don't thwart very much. Or they're Justice that thwart a ton, right? You sitting next to a Miss Marvel heavy thwart deck is not the same as sitting next to a Rocket or War Machine float like a butterfly deck. Those are very different experiences. So simply saying I'm playing Justice may not explain what your deck does. And I agree with you that this year there was a lot more of, I'm going to be doing damage, or I'm going to be protecting the table. You know, I sat down with Colossus in a deck I'll talk about later. Green Colossus, it's not about damage. It's about defending the table. Yeah. Oh, okay. Someone else sits down with a green Drax deck. Well, it's not about defending. I'm just going to push damage. So having an understanding beyond the colors was important. It's something I noticed this year too. Yeah. What's another thing that you want to talk about here?
Yeah, I definitely think it's been a lot of fun to see how the new packs releasing in the same weekend really affected the con. Because I definitely saw a lot of people take cards from Silk and Shuri and just like put it in theirs. Ready for a fight was everywhere.
Oh,
Everyone's ready for a fight.
Yep.
And that was cool to see. And even so much of, like, as we had talked about in that panel, that a few people played precons throughout, and they were able to do just great. And it was really cool to see the effect of the precons work, which is you can just buy a pack and you're ready to go to the table. And we saw that a few times, or at least I saw that a few times. But definitely lots of Silk and Shuri cards showed up in people's decks this time around.
Yeah, and I think Silk and Shuri themselves didn't show up as much as those cards did, which is interesting.
Yeah.
You know, I think the player cards are, you know, sometimes a standout of a pack. Not saying Silk and Shuri are bad. I did see them as well. You know, I played one of the con events with Tony Fanchi, and he brought along precons because he knew they were hard to get. So he brought along Silk and Shuri and passed them out to one of the players I played with who played the Silk precon that he had.
That's awesome.
So, you know, I think it's cool that it talks about what you're talking about, right? That you can show up to any game shop buy whatever hero you think is cool off the shelf and start playing. And before someone gets in my comments about legacy and current, stop. It's what I'm saying still holds true. Yes, things go out of print. The game's 5-6 years old now. It is what it is. But you can still go and be like, oh, I think Gambit's cool. You just buy Gambit, sit down and start playing. Or I think Silk is cool, right? Shout out to Keiko. If you know, you know. Yeah, so I think that's cool. I definitely, one of the things I wanted to touch on, speaking of Silk comes with a team-up card. And so does Black Panther.
Yeah.
Team-up cards were notably absent. I did not see a single team-up card played in any of the 40 games that I played.
Yeah. Yeah, same. I played 31 games, and I saw one team-up card, and it wasn't even, like, out of my own playing. I remember shuffling in, I think I had 4 opportunities to even do it. So even out of the number of games that I played, few times would I actually even be like, oh, I can use this team-up card. And only one time in that whole time was it actually used, which is a little sad because that's one of those fun multiplayer, like you're in hero form, I'm in hero form, or you're in alter ego and I'm in whatever it is. So let's play this and get this cool benefit. But yeah, the opportunities weren't that much.
Yeah, I think that really underscores for me how much of a miss team-up cards are on the whole. And I know on the Winning Hand podcast, we've talked about some team-up cards over the years.
Yeah.
We're typically negative on them. I don't think they're very impactful. I don't think they're very fun. Like, oftentimes, some of them are just not very strong. But some of them you can look at and think like, okay, if this was an aspect card, right, this is a fairly costed aspect card that does a thing and is efficient, and that's great. I really think team-up cards need to be thinking a lot bigger. And if FFG is watching this or listening to this, which who knows if they are, but I do think that team-up cards need to be splashy, they need to be exciting, they need to be above the curve of efficiency, right? It means that you are having to play a multiplayer game with 2 people who are playing heroes, which is already a difficult thing to set up, right? There's 55 heroes in the game. If I sit down at a meetup or at a con, what are the odds? I brought team-up cards in my decks, and every time I sat down, no one was playing those heroes, right? I sit down with Colossus. No one's playing Wolverine or Shadowcat, so I just take the cards out and sideboard them.
Yeah.
But if you're playing a solo game, yes, you can also play the ally, but that's a lot to set up too, right? You have to have the ally and leave them in play and draw the card at the right time. I think they are incredibly difficult to actually pull off. They should be really fun. And you know what? If you overtune them and they're like a little cracked, that's fine. It'll be okay, but they really should feel like, ooh, you like the team up card that is the best one. I think everyone agrees is the fastball special, right? It's the Wolverine and Colossus that can do a ton of damage for 1 cost. Is amazing, super fun, and that feels exciting. It should feel like I sit down. Oh, you're playing Wolverine, like I can throw you. We can play this 1 cost card. We could do however much damage, right? 10 damage, 12 damage, whatever. That's how it should feel. But a lot of them just feel like, oh, if we're both an alter ego, like we could heal a few points because we're Miles and Gwen, and like that's lame. I'm not gonna flip down for that, even if I have it. So I don't know. They're a big miss for me, but I think the community feels the same way because I did not see a single team up card. So
yeah, I definitely think like I'm starting to become of the mindset that team ups are more meant for. I don't know if this is a hot take, but I find them more consistent in solo than I do in multiplayer.
Interesting.
Because I can control the ally coming out and staying on the table.
Yep.
And so I can control all the things that I need to make sure that a team-up card comes off. And I don't want it to be that way. I want the team-up card to be because we're doing the combo and we're going to do this together. And like you said, you do that with Fastball Special, and it's so fun to get off. And I'm hoping that Heart of the Panther will be easier for people to fire off just because it's easy to get at least something to the table that has a special effect. But at the same time, you know, like you said, I just don't know that in terms of team-ups, we're going to see a lot of Shuri and T'Challa together unless you, like, explicitly build. But I don't know that I would bring those with me or even a team-up card if I'm going to go to a some type of a meetup. And so now I'm just like, maybe I'm just meant to do it with solo where I have the ally.
Yeah. I was going to say the opposite. I was going to say that I think I don't run them in solo because that's just too inconsistent. It's hard to line everything up, and they aren't honestly worth the trouble. Like that's really ultimately where I land on it.
Yeah.
So what I want them to do is I want to come to the con and I want to pull out Wolverine, and if someone sees like, oh, you're playing Wolverine, sick. We could do the team up card. Like, I will play Colossus. I'll change what I was going to play just so we can get that to pop off. That's awesome, right? If someone pulls out Gwen, I want to be like, ooh, never mind. I'm not playing Cyclops. I'm playing Miles because we're going to hit this. We're going to, like, shuffle it in your deck. I'll put it in mine. It's going to go crazy. That's what I want, that excitement. And that's just not there for me.
Yeah.
And so I really, again, I hope they push those up. I really hope they push the envelope and do something wild with those. Let them get a little crazy, because how often are they even played anyway? And if they're a little too strong in solo, like, people can just not play them. It's fine.
Right. Yeah, I definitely think that's what they aspire to be. At least at this point in my deck buildingness. One, we don't see them included anyway, so people are in agreement with it. But I do think if I were to ever try to do them, that's going to be the place where at least I know I can make it happen. But like you said, even then, it's like, is it worth it? Is it worth the card slot?
Yeah, exactly. That's how I land on it. Okay. What else do you have from just general thoughts about decks and deck building?
Yeah. So I think one of the things that I saw in terms of, when you think multiplayer and you think, how can I benefit the table? For the most part, I didn't see, there were a few like support decks. I'm going to help everyone else out and give them stuff. But the most that I really saw that was like, oh, this kept happening was the leadership player with command team. That seemed to be the main form. I do think, of the decks that I have from other players, I think Astradar's Witch Doctor was super fun. It's a basic deck, and all its goal is to help you heal, and that was super fun. So it felt more protection-y than anything else, and that was very giving to the table. But almost every leadership player had command team and would use that whenever someone's big ally came out. And so, like, a good example that I didn't see until it was already on the table was in a game with a 4-player game. Nelson actually brought and had like 3 command teams out. Astradar playing SPDR busted out Venom with all 4. So it's a 5/5 ally. And then just all of a sudden, Venom activated, and then you'd hear ready him. And then Venom activated, and then ready him. Then Venom activated, and then ready him, and then Venom activated. And so 20 damage from this combo. Command Team was I feel like, cross-deck combo king of the con.
I would agree. I saw a bunch of Command Team. I also saw a bunch of Med Team. Ooh. That's another one that I see that's supportive. I saw a lot of green support builds that were based around healing. So I've seen those in the past. Things like that you don't play in solo. Second Wind, Muster Courage. Med Team does get played in solo, but it just takes on more significance in a multiplayer game. Yeah. So I like the shield support thing of, like, I have Med Team, you have Command Team, and no one has Tac Team. I think that works out well. About your allies thing, I will say that Voltron is alive and well.
Yes.
I saw a lot of Voltroning. And allies, for me, I mostly saw them in 2 camps. There was either the play them, burn effect, immediately chump with them, and I'm putting them out, and so I'm going to put Reinforced Suit and Comms Implant and whatever else on them to buff them and get them out. Rarely did I see just, like, someone puts out a decent ally, uses all their activations, and they go away. Unless the scenario was forcing you into not chump blocking somehow. But I know on the Winning Hand podcast, we just talked about Adam Warlock recently, the ally. Yeah. And he is one that is not really great chump, fodder. You don't really want to chump at that last activation. But I didn't see anyone who would play him and then just, like, use the 3 activations and let him go away. It was like, well, if I'm going to put him out and use him, then he's going to be the focus of the deck. So I did see a lot of Voltroning. Yeah. And there's a lot of Voltron decks out there.
One deck I want to call out on the Voltron side is SDX has a Phoenix Leadership Voltron with Storm that was just out of this world good. And so much so that the whole goal behind it is you Voltron the Storm ally, you get out, as you had said earlier, a player side scheme that no one's going to care about, and they did the new recruits, and then you just load Storm up so that she thwarts for 5 or 6, and then because she's Uncanny X-Force, because you have Children of the Atom, she doesn't take consequential for it, and then she just moves threat, and so she's able to just do a lot. And even if I played an Avenger, and someone else had played an Avenger, and he handed them an honorary Avenger, and he put a Sky Cycle in. So that way Storm could ready, and she was just a thwarting machine. And that was a really cool way to handle and using Suit Up to do the ally, like, grab Storm. So within 2 turns, Storm was Voltroned and just thwarting for 14 every round. And in
Wow.
4-player, that's no joke. Like,
No.
I can't get over that.
Yeah, and then you can, I mean, I'm sharing the deck right now. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can see the deck that Andy's talking about. Mission leaders in there too, which just, is going to be drawing everyone a bunch of cards. This is, I figured we were just having general thoughts, but since you were talking about this deck specifically, you might as well just jump into this now. And then we can go back to more thoughts in a minute. But, this is cool. So why don't we just, while we're here, why don't we just talk about this deck? Why don't you tell me about, this is called Soul Queens Are Here to Slay Your Side Schemes is the title.
Yes, which also, great title. I definitely really appreciate that.
Kudos.
Absolutely. So under the allies, we have Professor X, Storm Triage. Under events, we have Game Time, Psychic Kicker, Soul Sisters, Suit Up, Player Side Schemes, Build Support, New Recruits, Specialized Training. Resources are the big 3. For supports, 2 Children of the Atom, 2 Command Team, 2 Uncanny X-Force, and for upgrades, 1 Danger Room Training, 1 Inspired, 1 Mission Leader. And the whole idea, of the things that I think this deck just does so well is, one of the supports that you really need quickly, like Children of the Atom and Uncanny X-Force, SDX provided 2 of them. So that way you're upping the odds of being able to see them, and then everything else is just around, man, once Storm is out there, once you suit her up and you get Psychic Kicker and you're readying and doing more, because Psychic Kicker, I believe it readies, gives them +2 thwart, +2 attack. That's huge. And then Game Time, which will heal and ready again. And because you've Voltroned with Danger Room Training, you can see where this is going quite quickly.
Yeah.
And then
this is a clever deck I've not seen before.
Yeah.
So I think this is really great.
The piece that really surprised me, and that was when I kind of had the jaw drop and wrote in my notes, was when SDX put out New Recruits and then told us all, do not thwart it, which is really weird to see a player side scheme come out, only to realize that for Storm, where when Storm thwarts a scheme, move 2 threat from that scheme to another scheme, that was the target. Move threat to New Recruits, never finish it, and you're great. And it was that was a wonderful move of a player side scheme. And no offense to New Recruits, not my favorite of the player side schemes.
I don't see that one get played a lot. Yeah.
It's a good target for Storm's ability.
Yeah, I think this is really clever. And I want to point on something you talked about a minute ago that goes back to something you mentioned earlier about deck consistency. Adding 2 copies of an upgrade you really need, I think, is something I'm seeing more and more of, and something I'm really coming around to in my decks. It used to be that I was so starved for space in a deck that, you just want to have 1, because if you have 2 depth focuses, what's the point, right? Then you have a card you can't play. But every card's a resource. Yeah. And if it's something really important, you want to hit it early, like Uncanny X-Force and Children of the Atom. If you really need it, you could even push 3, to be honest. Yeah. You can even put 3 copies in there, because I think it just helps you hit those things sooner. And I see, even though the card pool's expanding, and in theory or in reality, deck space is actually shrinking because there's more cards you want to put in, I see more people going for those 2 and 3 ofs, their supports, so that they hit it more consistently. So that's another trend that I'm noticing.
Yeah, that's it, which I'm all for in terms of consistency. Let's be okay with having cards that are just going to turn into resources once you play. Like you said, it'll actually be okay because I'm able to actually get started and running quicker.
Yeah. So that was an awesome deck. So we already shared that one. If you're watching this or if you're listening to this, there will be links in the show notes or down below in the description for all these decks to check out later. But that's just one I wanted to hit since you're already talking about it. I figured it was a good time to do it. Okay. So then, do I have any other thoughts I want to share? I think it's kind of everything. The last thing I will say is that I noticed consistently throughout the con, and I've talked about this a little bit on Discord already. I did notice people undervaluing damage throughout the con. Decks who undervalue damage. And I didn't see a lot of aggression. I still think people don't like aggression, and I get why. I think aggression is maybe the weakest aspect, but it does have very consistent ways of putting out damage.
Yeah.
And it does damage at a level that's not always needed in a solo game. And as we've talked about, as people I think know, the solo games dominate the online discourse. So most thoughts you read on Marvel CTB or you see on Discord are informed by solo play and directed towards solo players and solo play, which is not a bad thing. There's no wrong way to play Marvel Champions. I've said it a million times. But I do think when you get to these higher player count games, specifically 4 players, there's a lot of health. You flip Juggernaut and he has 100 health you have to get through. That is a ton to chew through. And I played a game with a friend of the channel, Astrodar. We played Rhino, and I put in the Return of Rhino mod that MCM made a couple years ago from Kennedy Hawk and the Kree Fanatic. And we had Ronan, the minion, come out 3 times throughout the game. We chewed through all of his health, and then Rhino has a shield in the Return to mod that prevents a bunch of damage. So we chewed through something like 70 damage beyond him. And things like that happen. The Thunderbolts do a ton of health, right? Off rip. So I think I did notice a lot of people playing Justice, or they play cards like Gunboat Diplomacy, which are super cool. That's a really clever card. But it doesn't, it loses a little bit of impact for me at higher player counts. Like Gunboat Diplomacy doesn't scale. So it's solo, it's great if you can get it to pull off. It does a ton of threat removal, a ton of damage. And theoretically, if you did that amount of damage at 4 player, and if everybody also scaled their damage up, it would be the same. But I don't find that that's the case. And so a lot of times I would sit down, I play a game with a couple people playing Justice, or one person playing Leadership, one person playing Protection, one playing Justice. And you would get to the point where decks start to get stuck. In the mid to late game, the output of damage doesn't scale. So I'll use an example of my own. I brought my Jubilee basic deck, which is great. Jubilee gets set up pretty quickly. There's some statuses, she does some damage. And then in the late game, all my damage cards are still 4 damage and a stun, which is fine, but everyone's set up and we need to make a big push now. And I'm like, well, I just drew my Thor card, so I don't know. So you start to feel like I'm kind of on the periphery and we need someone to be pushing the damage.
Yeah.
And I don't want to overblow the point. I do think, not is what it is, but I did notice that later in the con, I was sitting down and saying, okay, who is doing damage? Which one of you is playing a deck that is pushing some damage? Don't have to rush, but who's pumping damage?
That is a good call out, that the damage roll matters, especially in multiplayer. And the games that had the damage person, especially if they were using aggression, generally went quicker than the ones that didn't. I remember getting into a Black Widow game. It was a blast. None of us played aggression and none of us played doing damage. And so it took us about 2 to 3 hours to take down Black Widow. And I don't think it had to take that long. But I do want to shout out one of the decks on there was a Deadpool leadership deck. That Voltron Cable, back to that Voltron Alive and Well thing.
Yeah.
That saved us probably another hour of play. That deck was so good. But either way, the damage piece is real of if you're going to do those higher counts, having the damage player is nice. And aggression still has the best tools for damage.
Yeah, and I think you don't always need it at lower player counts. You can get away at a 2-player game. You can get away with not having an aggression player, I think, often. We really can't get away without having a Justice player or someone who's thwarting consistently at a low player count. At a high player count, I just think you need more damage to finish games so they don't drag on or you don't lose ultimately. I played a 4-player game against the 4 Horsemen on Expert. That's one of my early games, one of the early losses of the con for me, where we had 2 Justice players and I was playing Protection, and I think we had a Leadership player, and we couldn't do enough damage, and so that we just were slowly strangled by the scenario that we just couldn't progress, and they kept hitting their effects because they have an effect every time they activate, and we couldn't get rid of the really bad ones because we couldn't push damage, and then that was putting us back, and eventually we were spinning, but slowly drowning, and we lost, and it took longer than it should have, and so then that was something I noticed throughout the con is that people, I think at 4-player games, they undervalue the role of a big damage.
Yeah, and I think that is a good call out of Thwarting. We feel more. That was actually coming back here and then getting a game in at 2-player. All of a sudden, it was oh, the main scheme is about to go? What? Whereas all weekend, I didn't have to care once about the main scheme, even being the Justice player. But it swaps. And in 4-player, like you said, damage becomes the harder thing to come by, but there's plenty of thresholds on the scheming.
Yeah, I agree. And So, any final kind of thoughts you want to talk about what you noticed in terms of decks and how people play?
Just in terms of one of the last things that kind of surprised me were the heroes that I didn't see at the table. There were a couple that kind of took me off guard a little bit. In that one, I saw plenty of the core set, which is always nice, except for Captain Marvel. But then Wave 2 was vastly underrepresented. That's Hawkeye, Spider-Woman, Ant-Man, Wasp, Quicksilver, and Scarlet Witch. I did see 2 Scarlet Witch, or I was in games with 2 Scarlet Witch games, but the rest of them, the other 5, weren't there. And I believe everything else was just like, oh, I didn't see this one ally, or this one hero from the Wave, but Wave 2 was the only one that was like this blatant hole of heroes that I didn't see.
I also see that you didn't see one of the Wave 4 people, which is Vision.
Yes. I did not see Vision.
I didn't see anybody else play Vision, to be honest. I played Vision. I brought one Vision deck. I played it a number of times, but I didn't see anybody else bringing or playing Vision. Yeah. I will say I agree with you. I did not see a single Quicksilver or a single Hawkeye, which I thought was maybe not super surprising for Hawkeye, but I didn't see Ant-Man either from that wave, so I think that wave was underrepresented. I didn't see a single Hulk this year. And
there were
Hulk
tons of Hulks last year.
Yeah, there was a ton of Hulks. No Hulk this year. I didn't see a single one. Did you?
No, I didn't see a single Hulk, which, once again, like last year, I think I had like 5 of my games were with a Hulk, which is a fourth of my games.
Yeah, I'm surprised there was none. And I didn't see 2 core set characters. Captain Marvel and She-Hulk were the only core set I did not see.
Well, interesting. I did see a She-Hulk, but I didn't see Captain Marvel. She was absent, which is also weird because I feel like she is still one of the strongest heroes just due to her card draw.
Yeah, especially for multiplayer because she can pass it out. She has a built-in Avengers Mansion.
Yeah. The same is true with Ironheart of characters that usually get really strong, and I'm used to seeing them, but Ironheart wasn't anywhere to be found.
Yeah, it's interesting. The choices of what people bring, what people don't bring. I saw a lot of heroes. It's 55 heroes at this point. I saw probably 40 of them, but there's some I didn't see.
Which was also interesting that the unique cards there weren't as many conflicts with them, like Quinn Carrier or X-Jet. Everyone was actually really good about those. But I also think some of that is just the variety of traits that are out there. Yeah. And like you said, 55 heroes, it's going to become less and less of an issue as this game grows.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, some of those things like Quinn Carrier and X-Jet, a lot of times a Helicarrier is just as good. Unless you're playing something that needs to be played out of phase or in the villain's turn, but maybe people are wising up to that. All right, I'm going to transition us to decks then, Andy, and I'm going to have you start because this is one that you wanted to talk about, that you played quite a bit. This is one of your own decks, you shameless self-promoter.
Oh, man. That's exactly what this is. So out of 31 games,
hold on, before we go into this, I want to just let people know, we don't usually talk about our own decks. We don't usually talk about deck builders who are pretty well known, which Andy, of course, is. But since this is a con-specific episode, I have some that I wanted to mention that I played of my own decks, not to promote my own decks. I certainly don't need someone to go like it for me. But I just want to talk about some things that I saw that I really enjoyed, that I had fun with. And we're also going to mention other deck builders as well and decks that we saw at the con. And I have one that I want to mention that I actually didn't see them get posted, but I do want to talk about the deck, so we'll get to those. But anyway, Andy, go ahead.
That sounds good. Yeah. So this is Ghost Spider in Leadership, which isn't a common deck for her. But at the same time, it was one that I wanted to play. I really enjoy getting to play this deck, so it was fun to do. Out of the 31 games, I got to play her 7 times. So she showed up a lot for me. And in this deck, we have 6 allies: Scarlet Spider, SPDR, Spider-Ham, Spider-Man, Spider-Man, Spider-Man. Just kidding. It's Hobie, Otto, and Peter. 3 You Got Thises, 1 Across the Spider-Verse, 2 Make the Calls, 3 Teamworks, a Superpower Training, and then for resources, the 3 doubles, the 2 of the Power in All of Us's, for supports, a Helicarrier and a Web of Life and Destiny, and then for upgrades, 3 Enhanced Awarenesses. And the part about this game, or this deck that is a ton of fun, is that, 1, just kind of getting to play her in Leadership is nice, but when the Web of Life and Destiny is out, the amount of cards that you can feed and have others draw, or you can draw yourself if you need the resources. Because I think at the start, I would often grab the card for myself just because it's Gwen. Her events kind of take a toll. However, you can start to just feed others tons of cards. And because of cards like You Got This, where you'll use the ally, it'll be exhausted, and then you'll go ahead and You Got This to grab their stat for that one last time, discard them to be able to draw a card for your web bracelet. Can't believe I couldn't remember that. And then ready, and then like you're able to set up everyone else. And oftentimes, if it's a character like SPDR who's going to come back to your hand anyway, you're able to set up a lot of this card draw for other people, and then Make the Call and Across the Spider-Verse are there to help you recur these people. Mm-hmm. And so like it was a fun way to play leadership, to hand others cards, and then to make sure that I'm still doing Gwen's abilities with You Got This and teamwork. And I can now control when I hand out that card because of You Got This. If I need a Web Warrior to leave play, and I badly wished I had Spider-Man 2099, now that I see his ability does the same. Like, if I just want to push an ally under the bus, like, I want to do that and then hand a card to someone. And this deck was a good way to be able to do that.
I played with you at the table when you played this deck at least once. And I remember thinking that this is a really clever deck. And
Thank you.
I'm not just saying that because you're my friend. I do think 2099 is a great inclusion here. That was one call out I was going to make. But he's newer than this deck is, so it is what it is. But the thing that got me the most, one was teamwork, because teamwork is a hero response, which is awesome. It triggers her ability, and it's 0 cost, so it's always great for Gwen. But enhanced awareness is the part that I thought was the most clever part of this deck, because the Power in All of Us helps you to pay for it, and you're banking those resources, specifically the ones that you want to use for her web bindings, because it has a resource requirement. Inexplicably, but it has a resource requirement. But having to bank those is great. Like, you can use them for all kinds of things. You're going to use them to trigger web binding. You're going to use them just to kind of shore up her economy a little bit. Yeah. You're also going to use them for Across the Spider-Verse. You pay for it once, and then you can just trigger each of those to pay for the second Web Warrior. There's so many uses for enhanced awareness in this deck, and that is such a great use of it. I remember thinking as you were playing it that was the most clever piece of this that I thought really made it work, because without that, a lot of it is, and I see a lot of decks like this online. It's like, here's my deck. It's all the best Web Warriors and Make the Call. And it's like, just like good Web Warrior stuff is good, and Make the Call is broken. So that's like a good deck. Yeah. But this goes beyond that, right? It uses those good pieces, but it also adds something a little bit clever. And now I'm not throwing shade at anybody who just puts Web Warriors and Make the Call in the deck.
It's a great deck.
There's no wrong way to play Marvel Champions. Yeah. But this takes it to another level and makes it really clever. So I really do appreciate this deck. I really enjoyed playing with it and watching it cook. And is this the one you played in our campaign? I think you did.
It was the one I played in our campaign. Yeah. Yep. I loved how quickly it was able to like help manage specific emergencies. But I definitely appreciate that call out. I know enhanced awareness, a lot of people kind of dipped on it, but like you said, like having that banked resource, especially in a time in which, when you're starting and you need it, it's so helpful to have. Yeah,
I think it really is a tool that, doesn't fit in every deck. It's not like a just generally good card. But there are uses for these cards. And my basic Jubilee deck that I published how long ago and I brought with me to the con uses 3 copies of Resourceful.
Which is awesome.
I also got some questions like, well, why would you just not put a better card in there? Yeah, well, like it specifically works in this deck because of the way it's played. Anyway, I think there are use cases for those decks. So this is a really good one.
Thanks.
Thank you for sharing that one.
Yeah.
And what is going to be next? You have another one that you played a bunch of times that I'm going to just let you just jump right in here and keep going, because I feel like you're on a roll, Andy.
Thank you. I feel like this deck makes me feel like a BAMF, So this is Nightcrawler Injustice. I got to play it 5 times at the con.
Wow. Love it.
It is Bishop, Blindfold, Gambit, Marvel Girl, Professor X, Shadowcat, as far as the allies go. For events, 3 multitasking, 3 mutant peacekeepers, and at the con, I did take out the 2 Turn the Tides and replace them with Even the Odds, and I'll give a story about that later. And then for resources, it was the 3 doubles, and then 2 Passion for Justices, and 2 The Power in All of Us's. For supports, X-Jet and X-Mansion, and then for upgrades, 2 enhanced awarenesses. And the enhanced awarenesses are those same type of concepts, especially since Even the Odds has a requirement for lightning. Oh, that was the other sub I did. I changed it from enhanced awareness to enhanced reflexes.
That was going to be my question. Carry on.
Yeah, absolutely. And part of that is because even the odds had the lightning, but also you will spend so many resources keeping your BAMF going that it's important to have ways that you can just store resources for later. And having 2 enhanced awarenesses and the X-Jet means one of those will come up quickly. So you're never in a need for resources for BAMF. You can always recur one of them from your discard pile every round. And that was a huge key to this deck, which is if you put a BAMF so you can worry about your health through the BAMF on the villain, then you can save your activation and your allies for Mutant Peacekeepers, where you can do a lot of thwarting among the schemes in play. And so the end game is that you thwart it to where each one in multiplayer is down to 4 threat left, and then you bust out and even the odds and just wipe them all and then do damage. And it was fun to get to play like in that same game where Command Team and Venom just pummeled and we had some damage left. It was fun to take this deck, get all of those. We had 5 side schemes out, get all of them down to 4, and then in a moment, just 5 damage to the villain. All the side schemes are gone. It was a ton of fun to get to play this deck.
Yeah, it looks like a cool deck, and you don't see a lot of Nightcrawler Justice, especially without the hotness, Gunboat. You know, I do think Mutant Peacekeepers is a really good call here. I think it maybe works better. You know, obviously you be the judge. No, good call here. I will stop sharing this.
Yeah.
We are going through some of these decks pretty quickly, listeners, viewers, because there's a lot of decks to go through. This might be a little bit longer of an episode. Deal with it. More of what you like. I mean, I'm not sorry.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I'm going to give your voice a break, Andy. I feel like you have been talking a lot, and I want to just give your throat a break. So I have a couple of decks that I want to talk about. And since you started with yourself, I will also start with myself. I will share a deck that I talked about a little bit before the con. This was my Wildcard deck. Last year I brought Star-Lord Pool. This year I decided to bring a Justice Iron Man deck with the Wildcardness coming from the fact that you just don't ever flip to hero form. This is intended to be an alter ego only deck. And I mean that in the purest sense. You will never even build the suit. You just spend it and it is what it is. I was a little worried. I brought this deck. I tested it at 1 and 2 before, but I didn't have a chance to test it at 3 and 4. But this deck is called Tony Stark, Director of S.H.I.E.L.D. It is a 45 card deck. Literally unplayable, Andy. Literally unplayable.
Absolutely unplayable.
I'm already
if it's
prepared
not
for the
40,
comments.
what are you even doing?
I know. I'm ready. At me, everybody. Okay, so allies, we have Agent 13, Dum Dum Dugan, Grant Ward, Melinda May, Monica Chang, Nick Fury Sr., Quake, and Spider-Man. Events, I have 3 copies of Homeland Intervention and 3 copies of Meditation, 1 copy of Build Support, the 3 basic double resources, 1 copy of Avengers Mansion, 3 Field Agents, 1 Helicarrier, 1 Sky Destroyer, 3 Surveillance Teams, and then upgrades, I have 1 Disguise and 1 Ingenuity. So basically this deck is meant to manage everything, and it builds up very quickly, quicker than you would think. And yes, it's an alter ego deck, so there's a lot of S.H.I.E.L.D. stuff, but apparently, I found out, Iron Man, Tony Stark, was the director of S.H.I.E.L.D. for a while, so I kind of found a thematic hook for it. It uses a lot of allies. I said I didn't see any Nick Furies at the deck, or at the con. Maybe that was a lie, other than my own, I meant. This
You
deck,
never look down.
I know, it's true. You just full speed ahead. So this deck sets up really quickly. You know, you are going to use these allies for their activations. Agent 13 is readying things like Helicarrier and Sky Destroyer. It could even ready Surveillance Team or something if you wanted to. And you're just going to exert a lot of control. Grant Ward is a free ally who's going to come in and thwart for 2 or attack for 2, whatever you need. If anything comes up, you have Ingenuity to spend that mental resource if you want to keep him on the field. Melinda May just provides some encounter deck control. Monica Chang pulls out Surveillance Teams. Spider-Man is great for nuking a side scheme in multiplayer. You play him from your hand, and it just kills a player side scheme. Boom, build support, just gone, which is incredible. A Quake is going to help you with the minions who sit out in play and thwart on you because you never flip to hero form. And then Nick Fury Sr. and Nick Fury. Nick Fury Sr. is primarily here to provide a tough card for Dum Dum or Agent 13 to provide more activations. And Nick Fury, the old school one, is primarily here to deal damage. You're not going to draw cards with him. You're going to deal the 4 damage, which I know feels like heresy. People cannot believe I used him to just deal 4 damage.
That you do that.
But he's a quick 6 damage burst, right? You drop him, he does 4, you hit him again for 2. That's just good. The star of the deck, though, is Dum Dum Dugan, who I think is much maligned, but can be awesome in the right circumstances. And here we can pump him up because you play him out, and you're going to exhaust 3 things every time. Whether it's Field Agent, you'll exhaust Helicarrier if you need to, or Surveillance Team. Any shield support you have will get exhausted, so that Dum Dum is going to add +3, and he can thwart or attack for 6. If Nick Fury Sr. gives him a tough card, that just gives him a 3rd activation of 6, so he can come in and deal 18 damage, which is awesome. And the fact that you draw 6 cards every turn as you're an alter ego, you have your Futurist, which is going to let you look at 3 of them and pick one. Avengers Mansion will draw you another card. Ingenuity gives you a resource. Pepper Potts gives you a resource. Stark Tower puts a tech into your hand, and since you never build your suit, it just puts it into your hand again. Stark Tower also puts tech into other players' hands. So crucially, I was playing with Rock at one time, and you can exhaust it to help someone else like Rocket put tech into their hand. So it has other uses to spread the table around. But this is a very control-y deck. Homeland Intervention, thwarts for a ton if you need to. So, and Meditation and Disguise just take advantage of your alter ego ability since you're sitting there anyway. I think people, when I sit down, I tell them it's an alter ego deck. They say they still expect you to build the suit, and eventually at the end you'll pop up and do your big damage or whatever. But no, every turn you spend it, if you don't build the suit, there's more tech to recur with Stark Tower. So this is super fun. This is a different kind of deck that I wouldn't normally play. It's a little slower, and I played it less than I wanted to at the con because I was cognizant of it being slow already, and a 4-player game is already kind of slow. But I also give it to other people to play, and they had a great time playing it too. So definitely something to check out if you're into something different. And it works at solo. It also is viable. I've played it a few times, and it's fine.
I was so skeptical of this deck when you brought it to the table, and you're like, Tony Stark, alter ego, never building the suit. I definitely was like, oh, we're not going to win this. But you handled that threat like none other. And I became a believer in that moment. It was such a fun deck to see. And then, like you said, my favorite was you kept asking us, like, what are the tech that is in your discard pile? I'm going to help you get it back. And when we play with Stark Tower, I rarely see Stark Tower for other players. But you're able to constantly use it for other people. And I think it was a Black Widow player who could keep getting both Grappling Hook and Widow's Bite back over and over again. And it was a better safe house. And so that was really cool to see how this helped the whole table. And you stayed an alter ego the whole time. And it really was funny. Every time you would have a suit and you discard it, you'd see someone kind of raise their eyes of like, what are you doing? And you're like, doesn't even matter.
Yeah. Yeah, it worked out a lot better than I thought. It was honestly meant to be kind of a joke, and then I tried it out, and the more I tried it, the better it played for me.
It was such a great deck.
I gave it to Lazy Titan. We played Expert Juggernaut, and he played this deck. It was one of the last nights of the con, and I played a different deck that I'm going to talk about in a minute. But even, I was worried about Juggernaut with scheming, and then it flips his helmet, but we had plenty of damage, and he had a great time with it too, and he enjoyed this deck a lot. And that was in part because of another deck I'm going to talk about right now. Since we're already kind of mentioning it, I will segue us right into that. So he was playing Alter Ego Nick Fury, or Tony Stark, which, again, there's a problem with Juggernaut because you need to flip his helmet, and if he schemes, he flips his helmet back. So I thought, this isn't really going to work. We're going to have a problem. I played this deck, which is called Niet. That is Russian for no, for those of you who aren't in the know. This is a Colossus Defend the Table protection deck, and this is the deck I had the most fun playing the entire con. I'll read through the list and then I'll talk about it briefly. It includes Armor and Polaris as the 2 allies. It has 3 copies of Anticipated Attack, 3 copies of Desperate Defense, 3 copies of Limitless Stamina, and 3 copies of Preemptive Strike. It includes Astonishing X-Men and Superpower Training. the 3 basic doubles, Moira McTaggart, and the X-Jet for supports. And then upgrades, it has 1 copy of Def Focus, 1 copy of Electrostatic Armor, 1 copy of Nerves of Steel, 3 copies of Ready for a Fight, the new hotness, and 1 copy of Unflappable. So one thing I was building before the con, I really like Colossus a lot. But one thing I don't ever see with Colossus is a defense deck. I don't see a lot of people using him to defend and using those tough cards to defend the table. So I wanted to try to do it. And this deck is a lot of fun. It gets cooking pretty quickly. Ready for a Fight is clutch for Colossus. Ready for a Fight just allows him to flip down. I think Armor Up already does, but this allows you to flip up or flip down to Alter Ego with a little more consistency and just be sure that when the villain schemes, you're going to get right back. So you're going to get a free flip into hero form to take care of that scheme. So Ready for Fight is a 1-cost upgrade. It's a preparation. As a fist resource requirement, and says max 1 per player. And the interrupt is when an enemy would scheme, you discard Ready for a Fight and change to hero form. That hero enemy attacks you instead. And there was a ruling from Fantasy Flight that you don't have to be an Alter Ego. You can be, but you don't have to be. And it's not a scheme on you, it's just a scheme. So when Lazy Titan was playing this Alter Ego deck, let's have that down. Even if I'm in hero form, immediately he would scheme. Nope, he attacks me instead.
I love that. I love that it draws the fight to you.
Yeah.
Like, even, like you said, like, even if it's on theirs, what a great way with Colossus where it's like, I don't know how often I can exhaust, but I have all these toughs, and you can use Ready for a Fight to bring it right to you is a great call.
Yeah, and the MVP of this deck is definitely Anticipated Attack. Anticipated Attack is an awesome card, and it's one of the reasons I included 2-player side schemes here, so you can trigger it. Anticipated Attack, for those of you who don't know, because it's not a super popular card, is a 2-cost defense event. You can play only if there is a side scheme in the victory display. And Hero Interrupt Defense. When an enemy initiates an attack, give your hero a tough status card. So this allows you, without defending, by exhausting, you can pull an attack towards you. So basically, someone attacks, you play Anticipated Attack with 1 tough card on you. It draws the attack to you without doing anything. You immediately get a tough card and immediately lose that tough card, which triggers Iron Will. You draw a card. It also triggers Unflappable, so you draw another card. So you immediately just draw 2 cards right back. If you play Ready for a Fight, you'll flip up, gain a tough card. You can then use the Desperate Defense to defend, which will cost you a tough card. It will guaranteed ready you. You can fall Iron Will again, Unflappable again. You're just drawing so many cards with this deck, and it just, every time the turn would start, I would have 6 to 8 to 10 cards in my hand. This is a draw monster, and Anticipated Attack is an awesome card.
I love that, especially since, I don't know about you, I don't see Defend the Table as an archetype utilized as much as it used to be. I think I'll sometimes see it with Shadowcat, and then I personally love it with Peter Parker. But to see it with Colossus, where you would have thought that we'd see a ton of Defend the Table with Colossus, and as far as I know, this is the first time I've really kind of seen it. And I think most people, once again, when they think of protection, they're just trying to get the toughs, or they're trying to get the stun lock, or whatever it is. I love that this is a way to protect the table with Colossus. I think that's such a unique way to bring that archetype back.
Yeah, and I had a great time. And the reason this deck is 43 cards is because I didn't actually have Ready for a Fight in my hand before I went to the con. So I had a 40-card deck, and you don't need Ready for a Fight to play this. You can just rely on getting Armor Up into your hand most of the time, because you go through your deck so fast that you will have it all the time. But it definitely helps make the deck sing. So that's why it's more cards. I might cut a few things. But, Ready for a Fight. Moira also triggers your card. So Ready for a Fight, you flip up, get a tough card. Moira draws you a card. You lose a tough card, you get another. Like, you just are drawing so many cards.
So good.
It's a fun time, and I don't see a lot of Colossus defense decks. So, so that is a deck from me. Okay, we've talked about our decks now, and it's time for us to get to the mission of this, which is to talk about other people's decks.
Yeah.
This is running long. I warned people, but we'll press on and talk about some decks. So I'm going to just share one of your random decks. You don't know which one I'm going to share.
I don't know which one.
You're just going to talk about it.
Living on a hope and a prayer on the edge of my seat over here.
I know. Are you worried I'm going to pick one that you don't actually like? Just kidding.
I like all the ones that I posted. Ooh,
here's one you touched on earlier. This was, sadly, Astrodar, I know you're listening. This was called Basic Witch. I'm a little sad you changed it to Witch Doctor, but I understand why. Andy, go ahead.
Yeah, so Basic, I'm just kidding. Witch Doctor, you got that in my head. So has Ironheart, The events are 3 basic spells, 3 first aids, 3 spiritual meditations, 3 doubles, Avengers Mansion, 3 crew quarters, 1 helicarrier, 1 Quinn carrier, 1 depth focus, 3 downtimes, 3 endurances, 3 ready to rumbles, 1 sorcerer supreme. And if it's not clear by that deck description, the whole goal of this deck is to heal and power up everyone else. Get endurances to the other heroes. Get downtime to the other heroes. Get crew quarters to the other heroes. Heal up whoever you want with first aid. Basic spell allows you to choose healing 3 damage from an identity. And then, her magic shields on their own, when a friendly character would take any amount of damage, prevent 3 of it. And so this deck, the only thing that it's gonna do is make sure that no damage matters. And that's so much fun. And when this deck was played at the table, it was super nice to not, once again, like, as far as protection goes, even though it's a basic deck, it was great not to have to worry about damage. If I'm down to 4 health, I'm not going to stay down very long, and it's going to be pretty fantastic. And Astrodar did a wonderful job in terms of building this deck. I also appreciate his possible Caleb Grace quote. I think that's a very fair chance that Caleb has said that.
I love that.
But all in all, it was a fun deck. I remember we played Ensabon Nur, who just has a lot of indirect damage, and the minions that are not fun. And we even added in the Mr. Hyde's modular. So when minions hit, they hit hard.
Yeah.
But damage didn't matter. And so it was a super fun deck.
No, this is great. I love this, and I really love the write-up. I'm not going to read all that here, but there will be links. You should definitely check this deck out. The write-up alone is worth a few chuckles. I do like this, and it's worth stressing again, and I didn't see this as much as I hoped I would at the con, but playing these cards and other people, endurance, downtime, ready to rumble, crew quarters, all these cards, they can be played on other people. There was a lot of times when I would have 1 or 2 copies of endurance on my deck, and it would come up, and I'd look around and be like, oh, well, this player is at 2 health. They need endurance more than I do right now. So rather than just instinctively playing it on my own board, I play it on somebody else. Here you go. Have a boost of 3 health. That's clutch, right? That's better than Med Team. So those are great, and this is a good deck. So check it out. Witch Doctor, worth your time, I would say. Andy, I'm going to let you go a second time.
Oh, no way.
I'm a monster. Yeah.
All right.
This time, we're going to go to some classic damage. And so I think you know the deck that I'm talking about. And I think everybody else will soon know the deck that I'm talking about. Here it is. It's called Overkillem in all caps. Why don't you read this deck for us?
Overkillem. So this is a Nick Fury deck built by Lazy Titan himself, and it did not disappoint.
No.
So for allies, we have Angela. For events, we have 2 Bring Its, 3 Into the Fray, 3 Looking for Trouble, 3 No Quarter. For resources, 2 Aggressive Energies, 2 Power of Aggressions, no doubles. For supports, 1 Hall of Heroes, and then for upgrades, 3 Follow-Throughs, 2 Hone Techniques, 3 Marked. And this deck does exactly what you would expect it to. Get some minions out using Looking for Trouble and Angela, and then farm them for counters onto your suit. Go into assault mode, obliterate once that minion has marked on it. So between the 3 follow-throughs, the marked, you get a Hone Technique out, you do Looking for Trouble, so it's going to be 9 damage with Overkill, and then you're going to bump up whatever that Overkill amount is by 3, and all of that removes threat off the main and spills over onto the villain. And there's just no stopping this deck once it's set up. It is a damage beast, and it was so fun to watch. And there would be times where in getting to watch him play this deck and play with him, where he would just like bring all the minions while he's in stealth, and you're just like, what are you doing? But he just farmed all of that threat onto his suit, and then it was just like he just bumped up into the fray up to a 20 damage attack, removed 20 threat, which his stealth mode had put on, and then just took out the villain. And it was like, that is good.
Yeah. It is this is a Timmy deck, right? We still call this a Timmy deck.
It has to be.
It's very
so
Timmy.
good.
It's
such a good Timmy deck.
A huge, it seems like it would be slow. that was my concern reading the deck list. It actually didn't take that long to set up. He was consistently going within a few turns, and then you're getting those counters because when they scheme on you, they scheme for one less and put a counter on you, and he was spending them all every time. So it was a really strong deck. It was fun to see, and I saw a lot of people talking about this deck and talking about what it did, and it helps that Nick is pretty new. I don't think a lot of people were playing Nick Fury, and I don't think there's been an established kind of meta play pattern for him yet. But this is awesome. It's very reminiscent of the classic Vision Bring It deck, right? Where you just let them sit there and hit you because who cares, and then you draw a bunch of cards to bring it. This is more effective because you can more easily flip your suit and then do the damage and get back again. The problem that Vision always has with that deck is you get a bunch of minions in front of you, you bring it, and they're not hitting you, but as soon as you flip that suit, you're taking more damage than you can actually afford to take, and then you're in real trouble, or you flip down and they all scheme and you lose the game. So this kind of counters some of that. So definitely
other good call out and great choice by Lazy Titan is no quarter in a deck that doesn't have basics means that it will hit.
Every time.
Yep. It is such a good idea. In case anyone was wondering why there weren't any basic doubles, it's because it's all meant to be aggression, and that's all you need in order to ramp up and do lots of damage. And no quarter helps you speed through to find those marks and those follow throughs so that you can keep your combos going.
Yeah, and Nick naturally has a lot of upgrades and supports that he plays out, very preparation heavy. So he was playing those out and thinning his deck, and it was just only aggression cards. So by the time you're hitting no quarter with Hone Technique and everything else and Power of Aggression, you're just drawing every card is going to your hand because they're all red. So it was really good. This classic Lazy Titan, just damage output to the max. So it was fun to watch and fun to play with this deck. All right, well, we have a couple more. We have a bunch of decks listed here. I don't know if we're going to get to all of them because this is getting a little long. I would be remiss if I did not mention another star of the con.
I think I know which one you're going to talk about. I'm excited to talk about this one.
I'm a little shy about this deck.
It's kind of a legend now.
It does. The legend. I see what you did there. You see what I did. I'm teasing it. Okay. We are, of course, talking about SHY, which is the acronym for Stop Hitting Yourself, one of the new hotness events. This is a deck that, if you're watching this on YouTube, might give you a seizure, so take it easy. V. Jackson went a little heavy with the GIF there, but Andy, do you say GIF or do you say GIF?
I say GIF, but I don't look down on anyone who says GIF. I go by the person who created the format calls it GIF, and I also enjoy peanut butter. So
interesting. Double. So if you were going to say the word graphic, would you say giraffic or would you say graphic?
I would say giraffic.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay. All right, so here we are. We're going to talk about this. This is called Fortune Favors the SHY, Con of Heroes 2025. This deck is by V. Jackson. Let's read the list. He has 4 allies in here: Jocasta, Nightcrawler, and Polaris. Events, we have 3 copies of Stop Hitting Yourself, 3 copies of Not Today, 3 copies of Powerful Punch. We have 1 player side scheme, which is Super Power Training. The 3 basic doubles: Angel's Eyrie, Avengers Mansion, and the X-Jet for supports. For upgrades, we have Armored Vest, Change of Fortune, Electrostatic Armor, Flow Like Water, Unflappable, and 3 Ready for a Fight. Bunch of the new hotnesses in this deck. So the idea of this deck is to make a name for yourself. And the way we did that, I'm just full of it today, Andy.
That. I'll remember it.
Yeah. This is about, getting the counters up really high. And you can play this 2 ways, and he mentions this in the write-up. You can play it as a normal deck, and you play Stop Hitting Yourself to get, a fairly high defense. Gambit can get particularly high defense because of his event, Natural Agility, and the counters he can use. Or you can play it as a real Timmy combo, and you spend your counters for nothing else but this combo. But this is how it works. So Gambit gets counters every turn. Natural Agility means you can defend for 0 cost, place a charge counter, and then defend for +1 for each charge counter on you. So there's essentially no limit. You could defend for an infinite amount if you have enough counters. Stop Hitting Yourself is a 2-cost protection attack, which says after you defend against an enemy attack and take no damage, you deal damage to that enemy equal to your defense for that attack. So you can see how it works. You play Natural Agility, which puts you as a defense, and then you place charge counter, and you could defend it potentially for however much, and then Stop Hitting Yourself deals all that damage back, which can get crazy. And the way timing windows work, you can play multiple stop hitting yourself in the same window. So if you bank one with Jocasta, which will hide one for you, or excuse me, natural agility is what that will bank. But stop hitting yourself, you can play multiple if you draw into them. He also has Gambit Staff and Flow Like Water and Electrostatic Armor, which will deal more defense damage back. So a lot of GIFs, whatever is happening here. So he did mention in his record at the con was 80 damage. 80 damage on one attack that he dealt back. And that was just leaning fully into the Timmy combo, just trying to get as much as he could, which meant the rest of the game, he didn't spend his counters for any events, which obviously made him worse, and the table had to help carry a little bit. But the point was to get the combo, not to play an efficient game. And it worked. So 80 damage is the record. And so this deck did have a bit of a reputation and did develop a legend at the con.
I mean, four player villain health, I'm in shock over that number. And a defense.
One shot. Yeah.
Like, every other combo with that damage level, you're setting up like 1,000 cards. You're going to use 1,000 cards. No. Here, you're just going to defend with natural agility, play a couple of stop hitting yourselves, profit.
That's it. Yeah, it's too easy. And the great thing about it is, his staff really helps a lot of these defenses because you can interrupt, and if there's the villain gets a tough card for whatever reason, you can interrupt and ping that tough card so you don't waste 80 damage on a tough card. But yeah, incredible. A lot of people were talking about this deck at the con because it did make rounds. It was there were whispers about the legend of this deck. So V Jackson, awesome deck builder, an awesomer guy actually, and a real community asset. So thanks for sharing this deck, V Jackson.
Yeah. That's one of the cooler parts is you get to meet all these really cool people and be like, I see your name on Discord, but now that I get to meet you in person,
you're way cooler than
incredible.
I thought.
Right?
You're kind of a jerk. Just kidding. Let's do one more each. So you have a couple here. I'm just going to choose one for you because that's just how this works.
Yeah.
Let's share this, and this is a Nova deck.
Nova Leadership.
So, what do you got for us, Andy?
Yeah, so this is Nova Leadership. It is by The Daily Struggle. He has a published version. The one that we are showing is actually with changes that he made to the con, for the con. And in this one, we got to play the Thunderbolt scenario with our Nemesis sets in, which I will say, Warbringer, real tool. Tool.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, the deck itself was a ton of fun to watch play. And so it very much is the ally-heavy leadership. So for allies, we have Goliath, Grant Ward, Moon Girl, Nick Fury, Power Man, Slingshot, Spider-Man, Vision, Vivian. And then for events, go for champions, 2 make the calls, 4 player side schemes, backup. For resources, 2 effective leaderships, 1 energy, genius, and strength, 2 power of leaderships. And then for supports, 1 champions mobile bunker, 3 command teams, and 1 helicarrier. And as we said earlier, command team definitely was the combo deck piece of choice, being able to help anyone ready allies. But in this deck, you're actually going to use it for your allies because a lot of them have bumps that you can do, like Goliath, who you can choose to have +4 attack until the end of the phase, and then you have to discard him. So bust out the command teams. Get that damage going. Use his 5 attack both times. And then you also have Power Man, who has those counters. And he gives him that attack until the end of the phase, so he can have up to a 4 attack that you can use in that moment. And then Vision, also, until the end of the round, or phase, he can get +2 to sword or attack. And with Nova's helmet, it's really easy to trigger it. And so, at that point, the command team is overworking. That's how good it is. So there's no such thing as a Thunderbolt minion who's going to stick around once you get any of those allies set up, because they're just going to blitz right through. And so this was a super fun deck to have at the table. The Daily Struggle with just 1 G if you want to look up, but also you can just look up Sam Alexander in leadership and you'll see Sam's LAN party, and it was a blast.
This is really cool, and I mean, people are going to call me a Vision stan, but I really like the Vision ally, actually. I think he is underrated. I think that ability is really, really strong, just to be able to flex with 1 resource to boost attack or thwart, and 4 or 3 is like pretty good.
That's pretty great.
I think he's a good ally. Command team is great here, and you're right. Nova's helmet lets you hit. The underused Power Man
Underused
is interesting.
Indeed.
I do not see him very often in many decks, and I'm always intrigued when I see a card that I don't see a lot, because it immediately makes me curious, right? How is this card being used? And no, it was good. I think you explained it well. And you played with this deck, right? It was good?
Yeah, it was at the table during the Thunderbolt scenario, and it was a blast. It did a great job.
The Thunderbolt scenario. Go ahead.
Yeah, Citizen V. When we all had to bring our Nemesis sets in. And so this was the deck that was in play. So Warbringer was one of the Thunderbolts that we had to contend with. And, man, he activates at you hard. But the Daily Struggle played it so well. Like, it was fun to watch it go.
Yeah, I wanted to say that if you did not go to the con, one of the things we did was a custom scenario where you play the Thunderbolts basically, but everyone uses their Nemesis minion instead of a Thunderbolt. And so you give them plus 10 hit points and the Thunderbolt keyword and villainous. Yeah. So that is a pretty fun way to play. And
was super fun.
Tried it later on a Saturday night, I think, or Sunday night with a couple people. And we pulled in some fun ones, like Lizard, who heals himself every round.
Ooh, that's a
Azazel
great one.
has Quick Strike.
Yeah.
We pulled in a couple of those Quick Strike ones, and it was not easy. And so that's a fun little mod. If you can print and play, all that stuff is on the Con of Heroes website. If you didn't go to the con and you want to check it out, conofheroes.com. I will probably remember to put a link down below, but if I don't, it's easy to remember. Go check it out. But it was a fun scenario. Okay, I will share one more deck, and then I think we will kind of be good here. This is one I think that you will enjoy. This is close to your heart. This is a long episode, folks, but lots of decks. This is Miss Marvel Justice, and I'm not going to go through this a whole lot. It is a 3 to 4 player themed deck. It is just basically to thwart everything. I saw this deck in action a few times. It does exactly as advertised. So it is called 3 to 4 player burst thwart unthreatened team is a happy team. Miss Marvel Justice. It includes 1 copy of Speed, 1 copy of Vivian, 1 copy of Wasp. Events, we have 1 Crisis Averted, 2 Even the Odds, 3 Multitasking, 2 One Way or Another, and 3 Steps Ahead, 3 copies of it. We have 2 copies of Digging Deep, 1 copy of Genius, 2 copies of Passion for Justice, and then 1 copy Operative Skill, 3 Overwatches, 1 Sense of Justice, and 1 Skilled Investigator. So this is just all about Overwatch, big thwart, clearing everything. And, there's a lot of scenarios that I've seen this played in, and it doesn't even blink an eye. Like, it clears everything. You never have to worry about thwart. So if you sit down with this, you're good to go. This guy, Hooterama, is one of my locals. So I have seen this deck more than just at the con, but I did see it at the con again and heard about others who played with it, and they were just like, wow. Like there's nothing else to thwart. There's no point to having a second Justice player when you play this, because it will clear everything. An insane amount. It's just basically boosting it, right? Using 3 steps ahead, Passion for Justice, and Operative Skill, and Shrink. Right? You have 3 or 4 different ways to just boost and split thwart, so you're just clearing everything.
I can't get over that. With Even the Odds, like, what side scheme can stand when you're bumping that up in 4-player to like 8 or 9 on all side schemes?
Yeah, none. It's so good. So check this deck out. This is a long description, but it is a good one. It annihilates threat at a rate that few heroes can do. I think Miss Marvel is known for being a good thwarter, but it takes it to a level that you don't see very much. So,
man, her Embiggen and her Shrink, like you said, she can just burst anything, and anything that does multiple instances in one card.
Yeah.
My goodness.
Yeah, she's really good in aggression too for the same reason, right? But I see her played a lot in Justice. So that was a lot of decks today, Andy. That was a lot we just went through. It was a long
so
episode.
Cool seeing
fun.
Everyone bring in these decks and starring them and being like, I love the creativity of this group, and going in and looking at how many of these people have the fake internet points and the hundreds is criminal. That these decks have been published and gone by, and it's like, no, but they're so good.
They're so good. I really hope you check out all the decks that we highlighted here. You don't need to check out my decks, although I enjoyed it, so I wanted to talk about it. Please feel free to check it out. But this really is not about self-promotion. Obviously, I just played so many fun decks. Oh, I did want to call one out. I almost forgot.
Yeah.
I wanted to call one deck that I could not find published on Marvel CDB. I played with a Discord user named Wild Zack Attack and two of his mates. I do not remember their names. I'm sorry, but they're also on Discord, I think. Anyway, they are all a local group, and they wanted to play a game with me, so we played a game. We played Sabinur. You don't have my notes in front of me. I don't remember who I played, but two of them, Zach and his friend, they played the two Black Panthers, OG and the new Black Panther.
Nice.
And they had a little combo going that I had not seen before, and you may see it somewhere else, but this is the first time I saw it. The new Black Panther Shuri player discarded T'Challa, right? Did not use him. The OG Black Panther make the call to T'Challa and then sidekicked him, because sidekick specifically says that you just need to play it on an identity-specific ally that you control, which that was met. So he sidekicked him and then started boosting up with Inspireds and whatever else he had, and then command teamed him. The really clever part is that every time T'Challa activates, you activate a Black Panther upgrade. And since he activates Black Panther upgrades, it's always the last one, because he only hits one. So you always hit the kicker. So every time he command teamed and activated, he was picking whatever Black Panther upgrade he wanted and hitting the kicker every single time. So he was just like, do it, command team, do it, command team, do it, get ready, do it, command team. And the other player was playing protection. So he was using med team and first aid to keep that Black Panther alive. And it did a surprising amount of damage in thwart. And that was a very, very clever deck that I had not seen before. An idea that had not occurred to me. To use somebody else's ally like in that way. And the most clever part, of course, was that every time you trigger an upgrade, it was always the last one. So you were always getting that kicker.
That was a cool
A+ deck. I hope they publish it, and if they do, I will try to link it if I find it. But if you're listening, Wild Zack Attack and your two friends whose names I cannot remember off the top of my head, but that was an awesome deck and an awesome experience. We played Sabinur, and it started off slow, and we were getting buried, and then that Black Panther deck just went to work. So
that's so awesome.
Shout out.
I love it.
Yeah. Any other particularly clever or fun decks that you saw that we didn't cover today? Anything else you want to talk about?
I mean, the ones that were a lot of standouts, I think I've said in some way, like the Deadpool suiting up Cable, I thought was a super fun, clever thing to see. The Berea Hill recursion was a ton of fun. It's always that funny part of like, you just kind of hold on and while the combos are getting set up. And then once the combos are unleashed, it's like a breath of fresh air. And all of a sudden you're like, we got this, y'all. Yeah. And so it was like all those. And the whole thing, it really was just a blast. Like, I can't remember all of them. Someone, actually, lack of subtlety, had a Bishop Recursion deck that the very first game of the con, he was like, want to trade? And let me play that one. And it was so fun to use Bishop and recur Lockjaw because you're rich as Bishop. And it was just a blast. So, the hard part is there are so many great decks. Someone did Domino and Pool. Sorry, they're all just now coming out.
Yeah.
And the 100% did the War and then Bust Out Break Time, which in a 4-player is 12 damage. Boom. So War was doing 12 damage consistently. And it was awesome. Like, this is cool. Someone else did an Alter Ego only Domino, which, of note, Alter Ego only is alive and well as well. Like, we're seeing more of it, and it's really cool. Really cool to see how Alter Ego is now becoming its own sub-archetype in these aspects.
Yeah, that Domino pool deck, unless there were two of them at the con, that was another one of my locals, Pedrock. Shout out to Pedrock. That's a fun deck. We kind of workshopped some ideas together, Alter Ego decks.
That's awesome.
I got Iron Man and he got Domino, so we didn't get to play them together, but maybe since he's local, I'll play with him here. But so this was just an awesome con. In closing, I'll just say that the decks were awesome. Deck building for this game is alive and well, and this is a series where we focus on decks and deck building. So I do think a lot of that was on show here. A lot of awesome decks, a lot of awesome combos, things I hadn't seen before or that hadn't occurred to me with heroes that I don't like or don't play very much, but you see them across the table, you think like, well, like Domino is not for me. But then you see someone playing that Domino deck and you think like, man, Maybe
want to bring that
Domino
back
is
out.
for me. I kind of
Yeah.
want to try it again. So I came home with a whole bunch of lists in my mind that I want to try, a bunch of decks I want to try. So I hope this spurs some creativity and some passion in other people too. If you didn't get to go to the con, I'm sorry. If you made it to the con, it was awesome. I hope I got to play with you. And if you didn't get to this year, then maybe I'll play with you next year.
Yeah, same. There's so many people, so little time. I definitely, for the people, I didn't even get to everyone on my list, despite the number of games and number of people. And I hate that. It is so fun to see people who, like, it wasn't like, hey, I brought this, insert famous deck builder's name deck here. It was, hey, I built this. And it's like, bring it. Like, this is so great.
Yeah, but I did also see, not to shame them for net decking, I did see some people bringing decks, and some people even came up to me. I'm not like one of the big deck builders, but came up to me and said like, "Hey, I brought your X or Y deck, and I played it, and here was my experience," and that's super fun to hear. Like, I put these decks out because I think they're cool, and I play them, and I feel like they're worth sharing with people.
Yes.
And it's always fun when someone sees it and plays it, because I play other people's decks too. I don't. Above
absolutely. All of these, like, aside from today where I watched other people play them, like, I love getting to play other people's decks, and I think it's a good call out. I definitely did not mean that to throw shade at.
No, I know you didn't.
People who net deck. Shade. So, if you pulled someone else's deck, that's great. It was also fun to see a lot of the ingenuity of people, like tons of mental resources going on in these decks.
I see what you did there. With your enhanced awareness. I'm going to continue that metaphor. No, that was great. Thanks everybody for joining us today for a long, meandering look at some of these decks. It was a great time, and I hope you come back next time. Next episode, maybe we'll talk about some more multiplayer decks. I've been kind of on a multiplayer kick recently.
Yeah.
Our last episode was about that. This has transitioned to a monthly series. It used to be weekly, but we did a little bit longer and talk about some more things in depth. So hopefully you enjoyed that. If you did, please take 30 seconds, rate and review us on wherever you are listening, or leave a comment and notification, whatever, down below. All that stuff on YouTube. And you can always get in touch, winninghandpodcast@gmail.com. Thanks everybody for listening, and I hope you have a great time. Bye everybody.
Bye.